to Advanced and Performance Driving. I'm Reg Local. In this video I'm going to look at limit points and limit point assessment. It's a very specific element of cornering. So if you've seen some of the other videos, you know a few years ago I posted a couple of cornering videos. In one of those I looked at limit points as part of the overall picture of cornering. In this video we're going to look specifically at limit points and how we use them. So let's start with a question that I get asked quite regularly by people, especially when they book today's coaching with me. Quite often it's people who might not have done any additional driver training, but they might have bought a high performance car, and the question I get asked quite regularly is, well, I bought this car, this Porsche, this Golf GTI, whatever it is, and I'm having a little bit of trouble working out how fast I can go into corners. And I always tell them that actually the reason they're struggling with that question is that it's the wrong question to ask in the first place. The question they should be asking isn't how fast can I go into a corner, it is can I stop? So if you're driving on track, if you're driving somewhere where there's nothing coming the other way and it's you're away from the public road and all the usual hazards, then your priority is to get around that track, to get around those corners at the highest possible speed. How much grip has the car got? How early can you get the power in? That's all that matters. But actually on the road there's a range of millions and millions of different hazards that we could encounter at any point. So we have to employ the overriding safety rule when we're driving on the road, and that is that we've got to be able to stop in the distance we can see to be clear. So let's come back to limit points for a minute. The limit point is the furthest point I've got an uninterrupted view of the road surface. So I'll pause the picture there and I'll show you the limit point. So the limit point is the bit in the red circle there on the approach to that left-hander. You can see the tree and the wall on the left. That's the furthest point that I've got an uninterrupted view of the road surface. So whenever I refer to the limit point through this video, that's what I'm talking about. Now it might be the road surface, it might be the walls, where the walls cross over, or where the hedges intersect, but that's the limit point. And if we look at that logically, that's the furthest point we've got an uninterrupted view of the road surface. It's the distance we can see to be clear. So the question I'm asking myself on the approach to corners isn't how fast can I go into this corner, it is can I stop? Can I stop in the distance between the front of my car and that limit point? And this is how we judge our speed into corners on the road. So it isn't about how fast the car will go around the corner. This car's got really high limits. You know, most modern cars on modern tyres have got really high cornering limits. They'll go around corners very quickly. The question to be asking yourself is, just beyond that limit point, just beyond that point at which you've got an uninterrupted view, is there a cyclist? Is there somebody on a horse? Is there somebody who's parked the car badly? Somebody who's broken down? Is there a pedestrian in the road? Is there an animal? Is there a pheasant? Is there any one of all these thousands and thousands of things that could be happening on the public road? That's the question I'm asking myself. So it isn't about how quickly the car will physically go around the corner. It's about whether we can stop just at the point where we see the thing that's out of view. That's the really important thing to remember. We're driving on the road, there's a multitude of hazards out here. Doesn't mean we can't enjoy our driving, doesn't mean we can't be spirited in our driving, but the question to ask is, can I stop? Now I'm going to put another link below this video to a film I did a couple of years ago, in the M135i, where we looked at emergency braking and just how quickly modern cars will stop if you know what you're doing, if the tyres are in good condition. And in that video you can see that we massively beat the highway code braking distances. And actually you could see that from 30 miles an hour a car will stop pretty much in its own length. So in just over one car length at 30 miles an hour the car will come to a stop. And if we then employ that additional rule for braking, that if you double your speed you quadruple your braking distance, you'll see that at 60 miles an hour it will take somewhere between 4 and 5 car lengths to stop, which is remarkable, isn't it? So the first thing to remember when you're learning about limit points is that actually cars will stop really, really quickly, a lot quicker than you think they will. The next thing I want you to start doing is looking at the limit point. In the previous video about cornering, the one where we looked at limit points, we talked about the movement of the limit point, and I'll go into that in a bit. But the thing to remember is if you just look at that limit point and think to yourself, can I stop? You'll never go far wrong. As long as you go into that corner at a speed that you can stop in that distance you can see. Remember as well, modern cars, modern braking systems, stability systems, they will always stop in a curved path. You don't need to be going in a straight line. Let's get past this van. So let's look at the limit point for this next corner. It's just beyond the house, or the house is on the corner. I'm going to position out for the cyclist, and then I'm going to hold a position that's out towards the centre line. And the limit point, actually at the moment I can't see, it's just beyond the crest of the hill. So I'm off the gas, down to third, there's the limit point, and it's just starting to run. But I can always stop in the distance I can see. So I'm looking at that limit point and thinking, yes, I can always stop in that distance. Here, I can stop in the distance I can see to be clear. Very quickly, the limit point there fires off into the distance along this long straight, and it becomes irrelevant because we've just got the straight to think about there. So that's the really key thing to remember about limit points. It is the distance you can see, and you've always got to think, can I stop in that distance? When you start applying that thought process, you'll probably find that your cornering speed picks up a little bit. Because when I'm encouraging people to sort of look at the limit point and think creatively about whether they can stop in that distance, there's a realisation comes over people that actually they're approaching corners a little bit slow. That actually maybe they're being a bit overcautious on their speed assessment for corners. Because the car will easily stop in the distance. So let's move on now to how we use that limit point on approach through the corner and then out of the corner, and how we link it to our actions in the car and the inputs that we're giving the car. So the limit point moves, and it moves in 3 different ways. And when I say it moves, it doesn't move because it doesn't exist, but bear with me. What I mean is the limit point moves in relation to the front of our vehicle as we get closer to it. So yeah, the limit point isn't a real thing. It doesn't exist. It's an optical illusion, if you want to put it that way. But it appears to move in relation to us. And the first thing that the limit point will do is it'll get closer. So the limit point here is getting closer to us now. And the closer we get to the limit point, the tighter the corner is. And again, just apply a bit of logic to that. The closer you get to that limit point, obviously the tighter the corner is. Look at this next left-hander, it's quite a tight one. Not this one, but the one just through the bend, where the chevron boards are there. This is quite a tight left-hander. Look how close we get to it before. So we're closer and closer and closer. Only now is it starting to move. So if you can recognise just that we're getting closer and closer to that limit point, the closer we get to it, the slower we need to be going. If we apply the system of car control, information, obviously the information that we're taking in is the limit point and the movement of the limit point. Position, we'll get correct position on the approach to a corner, offside for a left-hander, near side for a right-hander. Then we're on the speed phase, and the speed phase we gauge by what the limit point's doing. The closer we get to the limit point, the more we're going to slow down. So for some, that limit point might just move a bit closer to us and then become stationary, which is the second movement. Those are the ones we just need to lift off the gas for. The ones we were getting closer and closer, I'm on the brakes. I'm on the brakes for this one until it starts moving. So movement number 1 of the limit point, it gets closer to us. Movement number 2, again, it's not really movement, but it stops, it becomes stationary. What that means is it's not stationary, it's moving away from us at the same rate as we're moving towards it. It's static. The distance between us and the limit point is consistent. Now that's the point at which you have found the tightness of the corner. You've found the tightness, that's it. It's not getting any tighter at that point. So that's the point at which we're out of the speed phase, and we might be at the gear phase or the acceleration phase. And remember that there's another video, and I'll put all these links below this video. There's another video I did about vehicle balance, where we refer to the fact that we want to be on the gas in the corner. A couple of good reasons. We want to maintain our speed at that level because we set our speed. And if you turn the steering wheel and you don't press the accelerator, the car's speed will drop off. We don't want that to happen. The other reason is that we want to encourage a little bit of movement of the weight back towards the car's rear axle. We want the car's rear axle weighted going into a corner because that creates a little bit of extra grip for the rear tyres, between the rear tyres and the road surface, and that just secures the car. It means that the rear tyres exactly follow the front tyres as you go through the corner. So, movement number 1, limit point gets closer, we're slowing down either off the gas or on the brakes. Movement number 2, the limit point becomes static, at which point we are on the gas and just having just a gentle application of gas to keep the car's speed where it is through the corner. We're not increasing the car's speed. Then we get to the third movement of the limit point. And some people will tell you this is the movement they're looking for. Actually, we're looking for those other 2 movements as well. But the third movement of the limit point is when it starts getting further away from us. As the limit point's moving away, that means that the corner is opening up. So that's the point at which we are starting to take the steering lock off, and we are getting firmer and firmer on the gas. It's the satisfying bit about cornering. It's the bit where we fire ourselves off up the road. So 3 movements of the limit point. It gets closer, we're slowing down and on the brakes. It becomes static, we found the tightness of the corner, and we're just on a gentle pressure on the gas to keep the car's speed where it is. Third movement, the limit point starts to move away from us, and it does it pretty quickly. It very quickly fires off into the distance. And we are on the gas and chasing that limit point. A lot of people refer to chasing the limit point. It's not an instructional term I use very often, chasing the limit point, because you'll never catch it. If you do, you're in trouble. But that's the basic premise of how we use the limit point to select our speed and choose our speed on the approach to a corner, through a corner, and then out of that corner as we drive out and off towards the next one. And then the other key thing to remember about limit points is that it's just one of a number of clues that we get about the tightness of corners. Not just the tightness of corners, but whether we can stop in the distance we can see, and whether there might be any other peripheral hazards that are there. There's a lot of other clues that we can pick up. We can see the hedge line, we can see the direction that other cars are going in, the angle that cars are coming towards us, the speed that they're carrying through corners, and we can pick up all those other clues and all that other information. But the limit point's a really useful one, and it's quite consistent, but you cannot always see the limit point. Here the limit point is where the walls intersect, and you can see how close we're getting to it, very close to it before it starts to move. So I'm looking through this bend. Let's put that into practice now as we drive this next section of road. I'm looking through this bend, there's a change in speed limit, we're checking the mirrors, a couple of pedestrians on the near side, cyclist on the off side, and then accelerating away. So looking into the distance now, the limit point has gone here, completely gone. It's a nice big fast open corner. There's a warning sign for a junction to the left, and now I've got a cross view and I can see a set of headlights coming towards me, this right-hander. So I can see the angle of the corner, I can see a blue van in the distance going away from us. So actually the limit point here is not relevant. I can see the whole of this corner. So all I'm doing is just maintaining a constant pressure on the gas pedal just to keep the car balanced all the way around this right-hander. Looking through now, I'm going to look at the next corner is a left-hander. So after this right-hander, we're going into a left-hander. Now look at the limit point, it's getting closer. So I'm off the gas, I'm down to 4th gear. Now it's static, so I'm applying some gas, and it remains static. Now it fires away, and we accelerate and chase it. That's the 3 movements of the limit point. Let's look at this next left-hander. There's somebody on the offside with a dog. The limit point's getting closer. I'm off the gas, I'm down a gear. Now it's static, so it's static, and I'm on pressure in the gas, and now it's firing away from us into the distance, and we're increasing the pressure on the gas pedal. So I'm recognising those 3 movements of the limit point and reacting with my inputs in the car. It's fairly straightforward, and it does work really consistently. And if you keep an eye on that limit point all the time that you're going through the corner, you shouldn't generally get caught out by those nasty little corners that tighten up, because the limit point will tell you in advance that that corner is about to tighten up. So here, for instance, it just tightens up a little bit, just there, and then I'm on the brakes for the left-hander. I'm actually looking through to see if the overtake is on, as it is. So straight to the offside and straight to the overtake. Checking the mirrors, back in again, and then we're looking at the bend sign. So again, another clue about corners here. We've got the series of bends for half a mile. Keeping a near side position. I can't see the limit point here because of the crest of the hill. Now I can, it's the edge of the wall. and it's moving, it's moving, it's moving, and it's gone. And brakes now for the cyclist, and you can see there that, can we stop on our own side of the road in the distance we can see to be clear? Easily. Don't necessarily need to stop for the cyclist, but we weren't even heavy braking there. It came into view, immediately we're on the brakes on a curved path. There's absolutely no harm in braking on a curved path, and the limit point worked perfectly for us there because I wasn't carrying too much speed into that corner. So just hold a position near the centre line now, and now we've got the view. I'll just wait for over that crest of that hill. Yeah. Here, the limit point is just the walls, where the walls intersect, the near side and offside walls. A little bit of gas, drive it through. Eyes up towards the top of the hill now. And I'm just off the gas, letting the hill take a bit of speed off. Down one gear. Another cyclist, check the mirrors, go offside. Look at the limit point for this corner though, it's already moving. We're not even into it yet and it's moving. So that's telling me that it's a really open, fast corner. We can carry loads of speed through it if we want to. I'm carrying massive speed today, we'll stick within the speed limit. Eyes across the top of the wall, we've got that Land Rover coming towards us, a few buildings on the left. Usually that's a warning sign that we might get a change in speed limit. It feels like we're coming into a village. Actually knowing this road, there isn't a change in speed limit here, the village is off to the left. And now I'm looking at the right-hander in the distance, and the limit point is just away around the right-hander behind the trees, but I can see the glint of the cars going away from us through that corner. So actually the limit point isn't that relevant to us. Now I can see the chevron boards through the corner, so I'm going to take a near side position. Look at the limit point though, it's consistent distance, it's static. I'm just keeping a little bit of gentle pressure on the gas to keep the car balanced. Not increasing the car's speed, just keeping it balanced. And then as we turn into this left-hander, again, just a little bit of constant gas pressure to keep the car balanced through the corner. That way we're linking steering with acceleration with the gear that we've chosen. And that rear axle in this car in particular is coming to play as well. You know, that locking differential is helping us and push us through the corner. So to summarise then, the limit point is the distance you can see to be clear. Always think to yourself on the approach to a corner, can I stop in that distance between me and the limit point? And then use the movement of the limit point to work out what your correct speed into that corner should be. The closer you get to the limit point, the tighter the corner is. As you drive towards the corner, the limit point gets closer and gets closer, at which point we're reducing our speed. Once it becomes static, you've found the tightness of the corner, you can get on the gas and hold the car with a consistent pressure on the gas just at the speed that you've chosen. And then the third movement of the limit point, as it moves away from you and then fires off into the distance, we can squeeze the gas, balance the car, get the weight transferring rearwards and fire the car off out of the corner and look for and then we're straight on to looking for the next limit point. So the next trick then is to link one corner to the next. Don't just think about the limit point for the corner that you're in. As we go around this left-hander, I'm looking for the limit point into the right-hander, because that helps me judge whether I can be firm on the gas or whether I need to be off the gas and move in my position for the next corner. So there you go, limit points. I hope you found that useful. A bit more of a traditional Reg Local video, that, an instructional video. Next time you're out for a drive, just have a go with those limit points and think to yourself, can I stop in that distance? And it will encourage you off the brakes and get you onto the gas at an earlier point to keep the car balanced. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to go and have a look at the website, reglocal.com. Loads more information there about advanced and performance driving. You can also find out how you can come out for a day's driver coaching with me. Drop me a line, we can sort that out. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. And press the notification button, you'll get an email every time I upload a new video. But for now, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.